Right now at 5:30 in Silicon Valley, the rich are getting richer and everyone else is falling further behind. That growing inequality highlighted in the new Silicon Valley Index. Len Ramirez spoke to one man who has experienced both extremes firsthand.
Robert Aguirre has lived a double life in Silicon Valley. He once enjoyed the high life of working for tech companies in the 1980s.
I started working for electronic companies, working as a field service engineer, traveling all over the place, and then I started working for modem companies and started working on telecommunications. I had an email address before there was a www. So, I mean, that was a long time ago.
But he lost it all and became homeless after the dot-com bust.
Like 2008, ended up losing my house. I lost my business. The manufacturers that were my customers moved out of the country.
It changed his perspective on life in Silicon Valley.
People are pushed out, they're priced out, they're voted out. They're just not given a voice, they're not given an opportunity, and it just wears down on everybody, and suddenly there's just no money coming in.
And it's one example of the ever-widening Silicon Valley inequality gap.
Well, the finding is how extreme it is. We have the nation's largest wealth gaps, the largest and the most pronounced wealth gaps.
Russell Hancock is the president and CEO of Joint Venture Silicon Valley, a think tank which just published a report showing that since 2012, Silicon Valley's income divide grew twice as fast as the state and nation.
It's true, the top 10% of earners are holding on to 71% of all of the wealth. And the bottom 50% of people in the economy are holding only 2% of the wealth. So this is stark. This is really dramatic. You don't see that anywhere else but in Silicon Valley.
The report also found that the earnings of women, African Americans, and Latinos are falling farther behind compared to whites and Asians.
The old theory was that a rising tide would lift all of the boats. Not necessarily true any longer. The rising tides are lifting people who are investors, inventors, entrepreneurs, risk takers, and people that are filling out the highly talented roles in these tech companies.
The report is intended to inform and educate the industry, local policymakers, and the public, but it's what Robert found out the hard way.
I think the American dream is alive, but it's not alive for everyone. And when you start telling people, well, if you can't afford to live here, move somewhere else. Well, I asked them, do you expect your barista to come from, Central Valley to come here to make your coffee or to groom your dog or to, do your hair or, all these other things that we rely on people to do. You just can't expect people to come from outside of the area. They need to be able to afford to live here as well.
Robert survives on government assistance for housing and food, and he now says there are just two ways to make it in Silicon Valley: be extremely rich or extremely poor.
I get everything paid for me. I'm not taking advantage of the system as much as the system put me here.
And so, after years on the streets, he lives in a nice complex in San Jose that is subsidized under Section 8. He lives alongside tech workers, but pays only a fraction of the rent that they pay.
And according to the report, the number of people living in Silicon Valley is dropping, now stands under 3 million.